In this video, I will demonstrate entering diagnoses. There are multiple ways of entering diagnoses in Medflow. The first way I will demonstrate is accessing the PN button, which is your progress notes screen. Some doctors choose to complete the exam from the PN button. You'll notice your diagnoses button populate. You would select the DIAG button. Your most used diagnoses will populate on the right hand side of the screen, or your doctor diagnoses list. You can select the most used diagnoses by putting a check mark by the diagnoses. You will see it populate. You will choose which eye, the status of that diagnosis, and then you would insert the type data. When selecting Insert Type Data, you will notice the diagnoses populating at the bottom of the screen. If you wish to choose a diagnosis on the right-hand side of the screen, you would double-click on the diagnoses, choose which eye, manage your status, and then insert the type data. When selecting Load Last Visit, it will bring the last visit diagnoses up at the top of the screen. If you wish to bring it back to today's diagnoses, you would highlight the diagnoses, choose the status, and you'll notice the diagnoses populating at the bottom of the screen. If you wish to change the order in the way the diagnoses have populated, saying that you wanted the recent retinal detachment being number 1 diagnoses, you would highlight the diagnoses and select the 1. Cataract, if you wish to change it to the last one, you would select the 4, and you'll notice that it changes the order of your diagnoses. If you wish to search for a diagnosis in the master list, you can type in the diagnoses you're looking for, search the master list, and you'll notice the most used diagnoses is going to populate on the right hand side of the screen. Next you will select which eye, the status, and then insert the diagnoses. If you know the diagnosis code, you can free type in the diagnosis code, then search the master list. You'll notice the diagnosis code populating, highlight and choose Select, choose which eye, the status, and then insert type data, diagnoses, and select remove selected diagnoses with today's date, and you'll see it removed from the list. To leave the screen, you would press Escape on your keyboard or Exit, and we'll press Escape again. I'll show you how to enter diagnoses is the DX button. DX button is exactly the same as where we left in the PN button. This will allow you to enter diagnoses the same way. You'll notice your diagnoses populating at the bottom of the screen. If you wish to put in your diagnoses on the main screen, you can free type in the code that you're looking for. You'll notice your diagnosis code populating. You can double click behind the diagnosis code and choose which eye, and then update. You'll notice some of the diagnosis codes are in yellow. This just lets us know that PQRI can be reported on these diagnosis codes. If you wish to change the status from this screen, you'll notice in the white box behind the diagnoses with the letter N or M or S, if you hover over it, will tell you what the status is. So M for minor, S for stable, I for improving, W for worsening, and N for new. To make this change, you will click in the box and you'll notice that the letter changes to the appropriate status. Each time you click, it will make that change. If you wish to manage your diagnoses by going into Enter DX and Sequence, you will double click on Enter DX and Sequence, choose the diagnoses that you wish to show up on the screen by putting a check mark by it, and it would also show the order that you've selected. You can also manage the status from the screen. If you need to reset the numbers or you've chose the numbers in the wrong order, you can select Reset Numbers. If you wish for some of the diagnoses to not populate for today's exam, you will just not place a check mark beside the diagnoses. After placing them in the appropriate order, you would select Save and Remove Unchecked.